Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning. Welcome to Life Happens. I have a very special guest this morning, and Teepa Snow with Positive Approach to Care. And so I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
I am doing well, and it's great to be in Texas, even though I'm still sitting here in North Carolina.
Well, you're probably better because here it's raining and raining and raining.
We did that yesterday when Elsa came through. We got a lot of rain, like over 3 inches in an hour. It was like a lot of rain.
Some places in Texas have already gotten 12, so we're having a little wet weather here, and so. But in spite of the weather, so the cool thing we're going to talk about today is really helping families navigate transitioning. And so this is one of your specialties in, when do they know when to move them? So because you see different people, especially the caregivers, if they're the spouses and things like that. Some spouses can keep them home longer, some can't. But what's really a good time to move them and take that load off of that family member?
Okay, well, the really short and realistic answer is usually about 3 months after you ask the question, or 3 months before you ask the question, because what happens is we get ourselves to a point of no return before we're willing to really get serious about, I think we just have to do something. And it becomes a have to versus, I think we should try this out. I think this is an alternative. We should see whether or not it does work. I really think we want to do this before we have to do it, so that, for instance, some of the things to think about is, does the person like to be in control? Okay, well, if they like to be in control, then doing it earlier in dementia, when they have the potential to actually feel that they have some control. So would you rather try out this place or this place? We're going to try it for respite. We're going to try it for 6 to 8 weeks just to see what it feels like. If you ever had to make this decision, if you ever had to do it, which of these two places would be a place you'd rather be? And we're going to try it out because we don't know. And so doing it before you have to, if you have the resources, is a great option, because then a person feels in control of some of this. And it's an either or, this or this. What do you think?
Well, that's great advice, because,
that's not what happens.
It's not what happens. And so it's great advice, not necessarily what happens. But the goal always is to, because you're looking for quality of life. Most people feel so extremely guilty for not being able to take care of their loved ones. So they won't make that decision of, and they think respite.
I can't do this anymore. They wait until I can't do this anymore. And so for males, let's be clear, the most common thing that happens is when women become incontinent and men are starting to really struggle managing the continence, that's when they'll decide it's time. Yeah. But by then, we often are talking a place where the person has a very difficult time getting organized and being able to figure out a new place and figure out new people and figuring out how to engage and how to interact. And for women, it's when the person will not sleep or they feel physically threatened by their partner, their parent, their spouse, and that's, both of those are leaving really negative tastes in everybody's mouth, rather than thinking a little proactively and going, okay, do I want to be your daughter or wife, or do I want to be your caregiver? Because it's coming to a place where I can choose to do one or the other, but I'm not going to be able to sustain doing both. So which would we like to have? And so really looking ahead and going, okay, this is more probably going to happen for many people than not. So let's start to be in control a little bit.
I think that we find that it's even difficult to get them just to do respite. Just even short-term respite, going, hey, take a break, go stay in a hotel, let the other family members come in, do something. And so that's always difficult. And so always so difficult.
Yeah. So Kim, you said something that I also will sometimes say is like, well, when was the last time you guys went to a hotel? Because if you take your person to a hotel, it might actually give you a sense of how this might go. Because many communities, like especially assisted livings that may have a memory care associated with them, to the person living with dementia could look like a hotel. How do they handle a hotel in a common eating area? And how does that work? And so you guys can share a space in a hotel and see what happens, because if we don't know what happens there, then when we talk about going somewhere, how do they do with other guests? How do they do with interacting with the front desk staff? How disoriented or confused do they become? So what we do is go from 0 to 60 miles an hour without sort of doing this in between road testing. Like, how are they going out and hanging out somewhere for a while?
I know it's just such a difficult thing because most people are trying to decide, is it better to keep them at home or put them in a facility? Because that seems to be the conflict of, is it better to keep them at home or put them in the facility?
And the answer is, it depends on your person and you and your resources and their lifestyle and who they are as a human being. There are some people that are very social beings and they love to connect. And if they're the only one in the house having dementia, then connections are getting few and far between. Whereas if they move into a community where other people are living with dementia, they don't stand out so much. And they may actually shine because they have, well, hey, how are you? Well, it's good to see you. Now, you play the piano, don't you? Doesn't know him from Adam. But as far as interacting and engaging, the person gets a chance to shine and be friendly and use some of the skills they still have. If a person is more of a loner and likes to be alone, well, it would be great to know, can they integrate into a community? How do they integrate? Are they going to stay in their room all the time? Do they like to come out for certain things, not for others? And so still, trying to sort this out. Some people do better at home through the whole thing. Families do better at home. And some people really do better in a community. I mean, that's just the reality. And some of it depends on the type of dementia as well. Because there are certain types of dementia that can make it more challenging to offer care at home and other dementias that make it more difficult to offer it in a community.
So let's say that, the family says, okay, we've got to find a facility. We can't do it anymore. It's time. Mm-hmm. What kinds of things would you recommend that they really, because I know in my head the things that I would probably look for, but what truly should a family be looking at in regards to trying to decide, where they want their loved one to be? Because this is most likely going to be the last place they're going to live.
Correct.
So you want it to count, and you want it to be the best quality of life that you can give. So walk us through the things that we should be looking for.
So one of the things we want to really look at, and it's really critical, when somebody or one community says we do person-centered care, tell me more about that. We want to hear when they say they do person-centered care, it's a catchphrase. I want to know what they mean when they say that. Can my person get breakfast at times other than 7:45 to 8:45? Can my person get up late? Can my person stay up late? Because that's their pattern. How many helpers actually present and not on a med cart, not doing documentation, but physically present are there at any moment in time for the number of people? Tell me about the other people that are going to be in this environment. How many people like to have conversations? How many people in your environment are really social? What kind of engagement activities do you do? How many outings are going on? What kind of physical stuff do you do? And we want to look at spaces, and are the spaces that they're offering at all resembling where my human being, the person that I know, likes to be? Or is it going to be, they don't want to be in any of those spaces. They aren't going to really like those kind of people. They are not going to, tell me about what happens. Think about, where do you have challenges in care right now? Because if you're a familiar, known individual and there are some challenges in a daily way, like whether it's maybe personal care or intimate care kinds of things, or meals or mobility, I would want to know, okay, so tell me a little bit about how you all help when people have trouble getting out of bed, when people have trouble going into the bathroom or showering or bathing. Tell me a little bit about your program. I'd like to meet the people who would be coming up with the care. I'd like to meet the staff and interact, because I want to know who these people are. Because if I know my person and I see the staff, I'm looking for, are there some good matches? And I want to do that not only morning, but I want to be there for another shift or two, especially if my person is active on another shift. Like if I have somebody who's very active in the evening, I want to meet who's going to be around in the evening, when in general, administration and some of the front office staff are less available. So I want to know what that's going to look at before we make this move. Or we could end up with a ping pong ball effect.
And see here, the one thing you didn't ask was whether the food was good. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely. So what do they cook? What kind of meals and food do they have? And what kind of, if I have somebody who really is very active in their faith community, what kind of faith-based services? Whatever is important to that individual. Is there access to outdoors?
Yeah.
Because I want to know what offers comfort, connection, what makes a difference, and what are they offering? And it's more than how the place looks.
Yeah. And so most definitely. So I'm such a picky eater, so I always worry about food.
Well, it's important. And I would definitely, Kim, want to make sure that we took care of that, because tell me what the options are for meals, because I got a feeling, are you a grazer or are you a meal consumer?
And so me, I'm just a meal consumer, but I'm very picky about what I eat. And so, and I'm better as I've gotten older, but I just keep thinking, what happens if they stick something in front of me that I'm not going to eat? What are my options? Because
I am so sorry that happened, Kim. Absolutely. Let me get rid of that. Now, was it more the grilled cheese you were thinking about? Or, this is where, are they curious about what your mom likes to eat?
Yeah.
And if not, that tells me, I'm concerned.
Yeah. So,
I want to see curiosity.
Yes. Well, I think you can never ask too many questions. And so,
and if they're, they ought to be curious about me and about my person as well. I want them to show curiosity, not just me show curiosity. I want them to say, so tell me some stuff about your mom that's important.
Yeah.
If I get that, I'm like, ooh, nice. I like that.
So we've made the decision to go to memory care. What are some tips for kind of transitioning that loved one to memory care now that we've made that decision?
So you had some of my preferences, which is getting the person's feet wet in the shallow end of the pool. So whether it's a visit for a meal, whether it's, and I don't try to sugarcoat it. Mom, I want us to go and look at this place. At some point I'm thinking we might need to really look at something. And the first person I might take is the spouse that doesn't have dementia if I'm the kid. Because guess who else is going to have to be satisfied with place?
Yeah.
So I might take the partner if I am not the primary. And often it's helpful to have somebody else and then talk about what you noticed. How was that? And then let's go as a threesome. And check it out. And we want to have, I usually try to have at least two in mind so that they can comparison versus I want to go, I don't want to go. Let's look at these two. And notice how I said future tense, but in fact, we're checking it out for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But we don't say it like that because then it feels like a rush job and it feels like I'm pushing. And so it has to be small. And then I'll say, you know what? I want us to come and I want you to try just sleeping on the bed overnight. See what you think. Now we're talking now that you have had to buy the bed. You have to go ahead and buy the space. And this is how the system is set up. But what it does is allow us to give the person a sense of this is temporary versus I'm going to take you and dump you here and it's a forever deal. Yeah. And we want to be real careful in my mind before we get to that place of you're here forever and there's no way out. Because what we do is we put the person in a sense of being trapped. And then that very primitive brain starts to get active and think, well, why are you doing this to me? Don't do this. No, I'm not going. Get me out of here. And we increase the risk of the potential for elopement, a resistance to care, distress. And we do that by how we introduce the topic. So I'm not a big believer in take them, drop them off, and take off. I find that usually results all too often in us having to go to the emergency and having to do potentially a psychiatric admission because of a distress meltdown, a catastrophic reaction. And I'm not in favor of that. I'm much more in favor of, this is something the doctor says we've got to try for right now. He's really concerned about how you've really not got the strength you used to have. And she's concerned about this. She really wants to get you tuned up and in a better place physically. Mom is really struggling with stuff. So the doctor is saying for right now, this is what for right now. And so those are some, I know a biggie. You ready for this one? This one's a surprise. Be careful about making the place look like home, because it isn't. First.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a surprise.
Yeah, sometimes go ahead and set it up like a hotel room. So what does it tell you if it's just a hotel room? What's your brain get? It's temporary. And so, yeah, for some people, if we wait further, then making it look as much like the environment they came out of is important. And if we've waited a long time, then making it look and having the bathroom in the same direction and having the bed in the same location in the room makes sense. But sometimes it's better to not make it look like, here's your new home, when the person is like, I don't want to be here. So it's something to keep in mind. And we don't. Everybody is like, I want to make this look just like home. It's like, maybe make it look like a hotel room, a nice hotel room, but a hotel room nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a huge, you're absolutely correct, but it's not something that most people think about. Because I would have done exactly like most people and said, oh, let's make it, feel like home so it won't feel so bad.
Why is my stuff here? Why did you bring all my things here? And what do people do? They pack their stuff up.
Yeah.
They keep packing because this is not my home. I'm not staying here. And so that idea of like giving them a space they can recognize, this isn't my home, but this is where I'm staying right now. We already paid for it, So, I know it's not your favorite thing. Let's check out the garden, see what they got going on out there.
Yeah, perfect. And so, all good advice, such good advice. And so tell people they need your help in order to transition that person. So can you tell us how they find you?
Yeah, so we have a website, teepasnow.com, and we have a lot of free resources there. And we also have people. So you can do it with a phone call, or we also have a hotline, a tip line, a chat line, because we know this is not easy. We do free consults to sort of help people with this idea of transitioning, because if you make a misstep, sometimes it's hard to correct. And sometimes it's just simple things like maybe don't bring pictures of the family if the family is sort of the person who's going to get them out, because then they keep looking at the picture and going, well, where is my dog? I need her to come and get me. And it's like, oh, maybe a picture of wildflowers might be safer.
So they can call the 800 number at 877-877-1671. Is that correct?
Sure enough. Yeah. And they'll get us, and we can certainly see what we can do to help or find somebody who can.
Perfect. So I just wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been a huge pleasure and an honor for you to be on here. So I appreciate it immensely. And you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kim. And thanks for the opportunity to outreach to folks that you serve, because you provide a tremendous service. And boy, is that needed when it comes to living with this thing called dementia.
Yeah, well, it's a job I love. And so, which is great to have.
Yeah, those are the best.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.